If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Hey, welcome. Today we are so honored to have Pete Mondavi Jr., who's the leader of the Charles Krug winery. Pete, welcome to Green is Good, and thanks for taking the time to come on with Mike and I today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invite. I look forward to it.
Well, we just have to tell you straight up, we want to learn about what you're doing, and you're our first winemaker. Besides having a big-time, world-famous family name, you're our first winemaker ever on the show. So we're so excited to learn about what sustainability means to the winemaking industry and what it means for your wonderful brand, Charles Krug.
Well, I would love to. Glad to be the first one on here.
Okay. Let's celebrate with a toast, okay?
All right.
Okay, yeah.
So tell us a little bit, why have you taken your Charles Krug brand that's been around a long time into the green revolution, and how did that start, and how does that look?
Well, really, it starts in our backyard. Literally, because we were my brother Mark and I, who we both run this place.
Okay.
We were born and raised here. We started here when this Napa Valley wasn't like it is today. It was a very rural, agricultural community, very little traffic. Napa River was just beautiful, teeming with fish, steelhead runs. And my brother's an avid fisherman, so he'd go down there fishing as a kid all the time for steelhead. And over the years, we saw that diminish. The steelhead, just the quality of the river and the which kind of measures the local environment quality, just diminished and degraded over time. And we felt, and we're not the only ones here in Napa Valley, there's quite a few leading the sustainable charge that, God, we really need to address just our backyard here. And we do own about 850 acres of land throughout Napa Valley, from the very south end in Carneros up towards up in the hills in Howell Mountain as well, and several places in between.
Wow.
Which have, the farming there can have a significant impact on the health of the Napa Valley, and most importantly, the Napa River, which runs right through the Napa Valley. Just to give you a context, the Napa Valley is probably about 20, 25 miles long, and only, maybe on average, maybe a mile wide, and that's it. So all the vineyards have a huge impact on the river. So we moved our vineyard operations, some years ago, maybe about 5 to 8 years ago, more towards a sustainable agricultural commitment to enhance the Napa River, and I think I do know it's actually coming back to life again. We're getting more steelhead salmon runs coming up here. So why we did it was really for future generations.
So, so the why is there. How did you do it, though? How expensive was it? What kind of investment was it? And what does that really mean in terms of your practices and how you carry on the winery business then?
Well, it's really an evolution.
Okay.
We didn't turn on a switch and all of a sudden do it. We were looking at it. We're looking at organic techniques. Other neighbors were pursuing this as well. We kind of learned together and advance things. Some of the things we do is now we're going to more cover crop. Before, we would till the heck out of the soil. It'd be a beautiful vineyard. Nice green leaves, and then all your manicured dirt. But all that dirt, when you get wind, you get rains, the topsoil would run off into the river. Just plugging up the river with silt. So we went to cover crops. So now we literally plant, a variety of weeds, literally, in the vineyards, and that keeps the topsoil locked in. It does other beneficial things too. It also harbors beneficial insects in there. We put up things like bat boxes that eat enormous amounts of bugs at night when they come out. Songbirds, they eat a lot of bugs as well, more during the daytime hours, obviously. We put raptor boxes up, and those birds, and owl boxes, and those birds will take care of some of the rodent problems we may have in parts of our vineyards. So we do these things naturally avoiding or at least minimizing the use of chemicals and stuff. And if we do, have to do some applications, we try to do, natural-based applications, which are much more sensitive to the environment. Mold and mildew, of course, there's sprays for that, but we try to get on top of it, and we will leaf our vineyards, meaning we will literally come in if there's a problem with mold or mildew, we'll take leaves off, expose the bunches of grapes to more breeze, more sunlight, to reduce the growth of any mold or mildew out there. These are just some of the examples what we're doing out there. And these, we didn't do them all at once. We've evolved and learned.
That's really amazing, too, because when you first started out, this whole thing about natural pest control, natural mold and mildew control, you started out by telling the story about how you put in cover crops to save the topsoil from running off and becoming silt in the river and choking off the river, but losing the topsoil, and you did that by weeds. So I guess the vision right now of a really good, sustainable vineyard would be, well, it is well manicured, but if you see weeds between the vines, they're doing something right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you started this, and it's been an evolution. How many years ago did you start this, Pete? And is organic farming becoming the norm now? Are you the leader of this, and other people are following you? And is this because the green revolution has taken off so much? Has this also become a great marketing tool for yourself also?
Now, the sustainable is let's talk Napa Valley.
Sure.
I think is starting to become the norm.
Great.
I can't tell you exactly how many vineyards are in the
right.
sustainable arena or not. Much smaller portion are in the organic, but that's gaining some momentum there. So the train's moving and it's not going to stop. So I think I can see everybody around. There's lots of cover crops, so on and so forth. So well on the road to sustainable farming here in Napa Valley, and as I mentioned, the Napa River is benefiting from that. Now, from a marketing standpoint, it's much more subtle.
Okay.
We do talk about it, not necessarily on the label.
Okay.
But in presentations, some of our sales material may reference the fact of sustainable farming. We don't make a huge deal out of it.
Does it give you a different marketplace, though? Will, instead of just certain markets carrying it, will Whole Foods carry your products instead of as opposed to if it wasn't organic or sustainable winemaking practices?
Yeah, you can tout it selectively.
Okay.
So where those buyers in those areas, those communities that tend to be more sensitive to sustainable farming, we'll talk about it more and tell them what we're doing. Truthfully out there's some markets that are less sensitive to that. I wish everyone was ultimately very sensitive to it, but it really is a market by market approach.
And I want our listeners to know you did not take this was not just some light endeavor by you and your dad and your brother. This was a $20 million investment over the years that you guys have made into organic and sustainable practices at your winery.
Yeah, that's the price tag for replanting most of our vineyards because we've been here. The family has been here on these properties for 65 years.
Wow!
And we, because a vineyard lifespan is about 30 years, we needed to start replanting. So for the last decade or so, we've been replanting our vineyards and moving them into the sustainable program as well. And the idea here is my brother Mark and I are third generation here.
Wow.
Fourth generation is coming along, and and some of them show interest in the wine business. Okay. Some of them are still too young to do that. Yeah.
Got it.
So we want to have this so we can sustain it for multiple generations to come along as a family business.
So talk about that. Let's go right into the family business issue. Your name is a legendary name in the wine business, which of course I'm sure in many ways is a curse and a blessing with all the pressure on you to keep producing great wines. But what is it now in a world of big business and big brands and multinational companies? How is it that the Mondavis get to stay independent and stay successful?
It's kind of a combination of things. First of all, it is difficult. There's a lot of consolidation out there. amongst the wineries. There's becoming a handful of these, super producers or whatever you want to call them, gobbling up brands throughout not only Napa Valley but California and around the world. So they're becoming very, very large suppliers of wine. And also the distribution network. It is really, we go through a 3-tier distribution network. So every state, some states have multiple distributors, but every state at least has one major distributor that we ship our wines through. And that distributor in a major state could represent literally 10, maybe even up to 15,000 different bottles of wine.
Wow.
And we're 8 amongst those. And so because of the consolidation of distribution, that is very challenging. However, we've been around, as I mentioned, for so long. We have a very good relationship with our distributors, and they like what we're doing. They like our brands. They support us. So that helps us kind of stay afloat in the distribution network. And I think we're kind of unusual in that situation to have that heritage and the direct family connection with all the distributors, because all the distributors actually are family owned. They're not publicly traded.
Gotcha.
On Wall Street. So they are private. They are family, and I think we relate very well to the family there. And the other thing that being a family business, selling through these distributors, is we take a distributor change very seriously and struggle over a distributor change if one happens. Whereas some of the larger corporations that have so many brands, they will just realign their brands because it's to their best interest, disregarding for potentially a distributor's performance. So
Gotcha.
We change a distributor if they're having a very difficult time with their brand, which happens very infrequently.
Well, Peter, as you mentioned too, with a long-term and very almost familial relationship that your company has with the distributors, I would think that the fact that you are practicing sustainable farming and growth operation, that would, by definition, make a real difference with your distributors as well. That would really resonate because it is more about family and about thinking for the future and future generations. Are we correct?
Oh, absolutely. And also it sets us apart from the kind of the big mainstream wineries who may not have as extensive a sustainable program. Sets us apart from those and makes us a bit unique out there amongst those, thousands of brands. In fact, I got a report the other day I saw it on the internet. There's, I think, California or United States now has 6,000 wineries.
6,000 wineries.
6,000 wineries.
Huh. So talk about how do you measure success with 6,000 wineries out there and the history that your family has and that you have? What is your yardstick now for success? You're running a sustainable winery. You would love the fourth generation, your children to come into the business. What's some of the yardsticks that you look at on a month-to-month, year-to-year, generational basis?
But really, first of all, we look long-term and generationally. The most important yardstick here, which has kept us independent and family-owned, is family comes first. I mean, the first thing is this is going to remain a family-owned business. And that's the most important thing, and it's kind of easy to measure. Either the whole family owns it or not. And then is it profitable to the family? Is the family, living, appropriate lifestyle and stuff? We are. Do we have the returns that Wall Street would command? Absolutely not. I think we're well below those returns, given the amount of assets and the investments we have. But you know what? It's the love and the pride of the business, the quality of the product, the lifestyle of the family business that really makes it a success for us. So we have quite a bit different yardsticks than that of a publicly traded winery.
Are you also, you said there's 6,000 wineries. Is Charles Krug and the Peter Mondavi family, are you the leading organic wine grape producer in Napa Valley?
I don't know if we're the leading one. We probably have as far as the acres are concerned, probably more acres under sustainable than most of the others. We could probably be in the top 10.
Wow.
This is not documented, but just knowing our acreage and some of the acreages, some of the other growers here at Napa Valley, we're probably in the top 10.
Pete, I know you explained some of the bats and the bluebirds and how they play a role in your organic farming practices and sustainable practices in the winery. What other things are you doing in terms of sustainability with regards to your business and your home? And because I know you have some other interests in terms of restoring buildings, which is really recycling buildings, again, a form of sustainability. I know you also have some fish-friendly farming stuff going on. Tell our listeners about those things, too.
Yeah, lots of things. I mean, it started at the home. I do have solar cells. We have PV panels on our roof. It represents about 25% of our consumption right now. I'd love to increase that. We have a couple of hybrids that we drive around. Another thing unusual, when we did remodel the house a couple of years ago, we did not add air conditioning.
Wow.
We had added extra insulation. It's an adobe construction, and adobe and cement, so I think it's fairly conservative there. And things like that to kind of conserve at home. Here at the winery, recycling our water that we use here in the winery for sanitation purposes, we recycle that through the vineyards. We've done excessive amounts of insulation. I think that's because we keep all of our cellars cool,
right,
55, 60 degrees. And just dumping more money into an excessive amounts of insulation, I think, is by far the best return. And that's where most of our money goes here. Is energy money is in refrigeration, and we've oversized our cooling tower because that actually saves money as well. Of course, all our lighting is predominantly
Pete,
out here.
So it's safe to say, Pete, this is a DNA thing with the Mondavi family. You guys, talk a good talk, but you also walk the walk across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing is to have it affect every aspect as much as we can.
How about the fish-friendly farming program? What's going on with that? What does that have to do with the winery?
Now, fish-friendly farming is kind of an extension of sustainable and to a certain degree organic farming. What that does is a lot of our vineyards border either the Napa River or tributaries to the Napa River. And what that does is it's farming practices that are specifically sensitive to the health of the Napa River and its tributaries, i.e. the cover crop. Minimizing any spraying, developing, and this is probably one of the big things and very expensive things, is developing the riparian area. We've redeveloped through the working with the county here and biologists. We've kind of recreated the natural riparian area because a lot of invasive plants have come in, and the invasive plants actually harbor bad insects, bad diseases to the grapevines. So we've replanted areas with the original native vegetation, which is great. They don't harbor these bad insects and some of the diseases as well. So it's what that does is it creates a great environment for the river. You layer it so you have a ground base that filters out any sediment that may work through the cover crop area. And taking care of trees that have shadows over the water keeps it cooler. So it's really a farming techniques that are ultimately sensitive to the river itself.
Pete, we want our listeners to know what are your short-term and long-term goals here. You've told us about the history. You've told us what you've done in terms of sustainability and the DNA of the Mondavi family. What are the short and long-term goals for Mondavi and for Charles Krug, the brand?
Well, long-term, obviously, is to remain family-owned, estate-driven wines coming off the acreage of vineyards that we have here, and really promote this for multiple generations to come, and also create a local environment here that is just a beautiful, healthy environment for people to raise their children in, and as well as our children and future grandchildren. A little shorter term, we just want to make sure we're financially viable so we can get to the long-term goals.
And is it your belief that this is the future of the food and the wine industry, that the consumer is going to be wanting organic products more and more, and that this is the future wave, and that's here to stay? It's not just a fad; it's a trend forever.
Oh, I believe it's a trend, especially when it comes to food, consumables. Definitely a trend that people are looking for sustainable, organic, not only for their potential health, but I think for the health of the environment as well.
Hey, Pete, our little bluebird told Mike and I that your family is planning something special. We're down to the last couple of minutes here, and we want to hear in the last 2 minutes of our show, what's special coming? The bluebird gave us a little heads up here.
Yeah,
and
we have something very special, very big coming in next year, but we're in the planning stage right now. The year would be 2011.
Okay.
And we're going to celebrate Charles Krug's 150th anniversary, the first winery in Napa Valley.
And how are you going to celebrate?
Well, a whole variety of ways. I'm not going to spill the beans.
Okay, not too
Wait
much.
a second. What was that bluebird? Okay.
A lot of stuff in planning, so stay tuned on that. But we'll definitely involve our historical buildings you mentioned earlier that we refurbished, essentially kind of recycled, so that'll definitely be part of the celebration. These are the buildings built in the 1800s by Charles Krug.
And just so our listeners know, where can they buy Charles Krug products in the United States and beyond?
Well, we're only distributed in the United States.
Okay.
Some of the restaurants, for instance, Morton's has several of our products.
Okay.
Depending what wine you're looking for, there are some local stores that will have it. It's really difficult to say exactly where in each market.
Okay.
But go to your local wine store and ask them for Charles Krug. We are distributed in all 50 states, so if there's a nice wine store there, they can definitely get access to the wine through the distributor.
Perfect. So Mike and I want to encourage all our listeners to buy Charles Krug wine, to support the Mondavi family for keeping up with their sustainability and being a leader in the green revolution and sustainability practices. Pete, next year when you have the big Charles Krug event, Mike and I would like to have you back on so you could talk about it and share with our listeners what you're doing. I'm sure it's going to be a big, wonderful bash. And you could give us an update on how things are going at your wineries. And Pete Mondavi, Mike Brady, and I just want to say thank you for coming on Green is Good. You are living proof that green is good.
Well, John and Mike, thank you very much.
Our pleasure, sir.